In this video, we'll go over 10 messages that immediately make a woman realize she's dealing with a weak man. In other words, if you send her any of the messages we'll discuss, she won't consider you as a man. At best, you'll be seen as a friend she can use. That's probably not what you want, so it's better to remove these kinds of messages from your communication arsenal when talking to women. The first message by which women identify weak men is, "I can reschedule my plans." This typically happens when you're chatting with a woman and you're already discussing meeting up. You suggest a day and time that works for you, but it doesn't work for her, and vice versa. But despite that, she's not willing to change her plans, while you're quick to offer to change yours. Right from the beginning, the man shows through his behavior that he's ready to set aside his own plans for the sake of a woman he hasn't even met in person yet. Meanwhile, those plans might actually be important and urgent. This situation can also come up after you've been talking for a while and have established some communication. Even then, it will negatively affect how she sees you. She'll realize that her importance in your interactions is skyrocketing, like it's rising faster than yeast. And there's a good chance she'll take advantage of it. So either be ready for that, or simply don't send a message like that at all. The second message is, please come back. Of course, not all the messages in this video, and this one in particular, are always used by men word for word. I just want to highlight the general direction and meaning behind messages like this. If in your message you clearly show that you want her back, then even if she agrees, a healthy relationship is unlikely to follow. And if you're also apologizing for something on top of that, then the situation is truly unfortunate. So I'd recommend working on your self-esteem because in this case, it's clearly in bad shape. Overall, I'm strongly against the idea of trying to get someone back. Very rarely does anything good come out of it. The third message is, give me a chance. A woman might see a message like this in situations where she's made the man feel guilty and clearly shows that she's not interested in him. And yet, illogically enough, he asks her for another chance to make things right. Or maybe the woman didn't want a relationship to begin with, and the man is pushing her to give him a chance. In both cases, he's displaying weak behavior. She already turned him down, and yet he keeps pursuing her. Sometimes, the woman might actually like the man, but she wants to increase her value in his eyes by pretending to be indifferent. And he falls for it. And any initial attraction she had disappears completely. In general, this and the other messages weak men tend to use are marked by one thing. The man's value is significantly lower than the woman's in the dynamic. The fourth message is, why aren't you answering? Men often use this phrase when a woman is ignoring them or simply taking a long time to reply for whatever reason. In both cases, it's better to avoid sending such messages. The point is, a man who sends a message like this is showing that he's overly needy and dependent on the woman's attention, because otherwise he would just shift his focus to another woman or get busy with his own life. So it's important to understand, asking why a woman isn't responding is unlikely to work in the man's favor. More likely, she'll just categorize him as a weak man. The fifth message is, can I get to know you? Many men might argue that this is a perfectly normal and acceptable way to start a conversation. But in reality, it's too ordinary and clearly shows your neediness. Moreover, this phrase is just as popular as it is ineffective. A huge number of men use this exact message as their opener, and the chances that a woman will even pay attention to it are quite low. And if she does, she might conclude that the man who sent it is weak, because everything is already obvious, and there's no intrigue whatsoever. So it's better to avoid using this kind of message when trying to start a conversation. Instead, consider more interesting options, which you can find online or in future videos on this channel. Though to be fair, the internet is also full of pretty bad openers, so you'll need to be selective. In my opinion, One of the most effective and versatile approaches is to notice and comment on something specific you found in her profile. But since this video isn't about the best messages for starting a conversation, let's move on. The sixth message is, I feel so lonely without you, or I miss you so much. Do I even need to say that by sending a message like this? Especially early on, a man is basically signing a declaration that he's weak. Maybe the man thinks he'll come across as a romantic. Like in the movies, where the woman hears those words and throws herself into his arms. But if we're talking about the real world, then in the vast majority of cases, the opposite happens. Most likely, the woman will distance herself even more and start paying attention to someone less romantic. Messages like this are better left unsent, no matter if you've known the woman for a few days or a few decades. A bit of romance on your part is totally fine, of course, but this kind of thing crosses the line and just comes off as emotional overkill. The seventh message is, do you like me? Or, could we be together? This is also one of those messages that clearly reveal a weak and insecure man. In this case, the man lacks confidence and is looking for reassurance that the woman likes him. Again, a man with healthy self-esteem wouldn't ask this. The thought wouldn't even cross his mind. If she's talking to you, it already means she likes you. At least that's the mindset I think is most helpful to adopt. Messages like, do you like me, will make the woman realize that you're already head over heels for her, or that you're extremely into her, even though she may have done nothing to deserve it, other than simply presenting herself well. The eighth message is, I'd move mountains for you. It's especially comical when a man sends this kind of message to a woman he barely knows. To many, this might sound unrealistic, but there really are men who say this, and they're not exactly a rare breed. Most often, it's younger guys or those lacking experience who write things like this. However, there's also a portion of grown men who still lack a basic understanding of how to interact with women. As a result, nothing stops them from declaring that they're ready to do anything just to be with a woman. This sends the message that the man values himself far less than he values her, which is completely unacceptable in a healthy and balanced relationship. If a man doesn't value himself, then a woman certainly won't either. The next point is when a man sends a huge wall of text, while the woman replies with only very short responses. In this situation, it's obvious that the woman is much less interested in the conversation than the man is. As you can probably tell, women like that should automatically be of no interest to you. There's a high chance that nothing meaningful will come out of it. So the best decision would be not to waste your time, and instead spend it wisely, looking for a woman who shows just as much interest in you. Because when there's such a clear imbalance in the level of interest, that's exactly when women start to use men. And I think that's not what you want. The next message is, you didn't like me, did you? For example, you and a woman went on a date, had a decent conversation, but afterward, she starts ignoring you when you try to get in touch. Naturally, some men will immediately start thinking that maybe she just didn't like them that much. Even if that's true, sending this kind of message will only make her lose even more interest. This message is soaked in insecurity and self-doubt. If you recognize yourself in any of these messages, don't worry. Awareness is the first step to improvement. The goal isn't to shame anyone, but to help you build more confident, self-respecting communication with women. When a man values himself, he naturally attracts more genuine interest. So instead of chasing validation or over-investing in someone who isn't showing mutual effort, focus on your growth, your standards, and your life. The right woman will notice, and more importantly, she'll reciprocate.